we'll start with possibly the biggest name that was in the portal, John Mateer. And this was a quick process for him as he enters the portal earlier this week officially, and then ends up heading down there to Oklahoma from Washington State, follows his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, and it was a really great season for him at Washington State, putting up career numbers, 3,139 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, was a big-time threat on the ground as well with 15 rushing touchdowns. And you're looking at a guy who's one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country. Brent Venables wasn't a great season for him at Oklahoma, and I'm kind of looking at this like he could be a savior for where this program's at right now.
Yeah, to me, Mateer is on day one the best quarterback in the Southeastern Conference. You look at what he did at Washington State, and I understand Washington State is no longer a Power 5 program, but when you look at what he did, running and passing, he was probably the top dual threat quarterback in the country, along with Jalen Milroe. You had Cam Ward, who's more of a pass-first guy. He comes in, Mateer, top 10 in the nation in passer rating, throwing it down the field with a high, healthy 8+ yard per clip. But then he's also running, and not just running to create throwing angles, but running with power. He is a 500+ guy in the squat, can run inside at a tremendous rate. You spread out the receivers where he can hit them with his arm, but now you're spread out. He can kill you inside. Reminds me in that respect of Jalen Hurts, another guy with tremendous quickness and lower body strength. Went to Oklahoma. Of course, John Mateer following in the footsteps. Hurts his senior year at Oklahoma had 3,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing. I believe that Mateer can do the same thing at Oklahoma, that 3,000, 1,000 yard plateau. He was close this year, which I think he'll be able to do. Now, of course, first order of business for Oklahoma, you got to improve that offensive line, which is one of the worst in the country. You were in the 130s in sack percentage against D1 opponents. That has to improve. Mateer's mobility will help that, but you still got to get better players up front, and you got to fill in this receiving core. But a huge, huge get for Oklahoma. And again, Mateer, to me, you could talk about Arch Manning. You could talk about maybe Diego Pavia coming back. We'll talk about some of the movement in the SEC. And of course, the portal is going to dictate a lot of this. But to me, I don't think there's going to be a better quarterback in that conference, arms, legs, production, experience, than John Mateer.
Well, and if you're an OU fan, are you looking at this like, man, we just had Jackson Arnold, who was one of the top quarterbacks in the country, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country here, and it wasn't necessarily all his fault because of the situation up front and the injuries around that at the skill positions. So are you banking everything on Mateer, or like you said, I mean, how much of an improvement do you need to see from the other position groups there offensively? And then, of course, new offensive coordinator coming in Ben Arbuckle.
We've added Luke Buklenko as an offensive lineman. You will add more. And then, not coincidentally, as the same day that Mateer signs with Oklahoma, you had 2 receivers sign up for a receiving core that's been depleted by transfer portal, previously depleted by injuries. It really went away fast. But you do at Keontez Lewis. He was a Southern Illinois, originally a D1 kid, UCLA, Wisconsin, goes to Southern Illinois, boost up his stock, has a productive season. Then also you dip into the FCS for Arkansas Pine Bluff transfer. Sorry, not the FCS, for the G5, Arkansas Pine Bluff transfer. Giovanni Gibbs, another highly productive player to add to the roster and give Mateer someone to throw to. You also had at Burks, his top receiver last year, Oklahoma's top receiver last year, Purdue transfer who was hurt. He was with Mateer on the visit, so you get him back healthy. And now you're starting to see the outlines of a pretty nice receiving core. Again, last year with Jackson Arnold, you did not see the best out of Jackson Arnold. He was also a dual threat quarterback. Even in the games like he beat Alabama, over 60 yards passing. So even the games that he played well, it was not prolific like what you've seen from Mateer at Washington State. I don't think that's a Jackson Arnold problem necessarily. He went to Auburn for a reason. He got money for a reason. He's a pretty good football player. But Mateer's a more fully realized product, a more dominant product. By the way, Arkansas Pine Bluff is FCS. I apologize earlier. I said they were G5. They're actually FCS. So that's a move up. But I think Mateer, when you look at the physical traits, the size, the quickness, the arm strength, all that will translate. If some of these lower tier receivers can jump to the next level, and you bring in Deion Burks back to full health, you're starting an outline of an improved offense.
And just putting a bow on this news right here, the Mateer, as December 2nd, Ben Arbuckle was named the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. It seemed like it was always trending in that direction. Miami tried to get themselves in the mix there. Obviously, Cam Ward was at Washington State. We saw what he did at Miami this year, but that one seemed like for a while it was going to trend towards this way.
Yeah, it's some people think that with Arbuckle going over there, it was almost like a term of the agreement. The Mateer would come with him. I'm not sure that's the case, but certainly that helped. He's from Little Elm, Texas, which is right outside of Dallas. That's about an hour and a half drive from Norman. It makes a lot of sense. He seems like he fits in with the players already. You saw him posting pictures on campus, excited to be there. So assuming you can get the offensive line and the wide receiver core where it needs to be, I think it's a good fit. But as a player, to me, the best quarterback in the SEC the second he steps on campus.